Hello, how you doing? So we're here to bring you today. I heard a really funny thing the other day about lacrosse. Okay, so lacrosse is the joke about lacrosse is it combines America's two least popular sports, hockey and soccer. But anyway, let's talk a little soccer because
Well, I'm only going to bring this up in connection with the results.
Right.
And earlier in the week, USA Soccer, Team USA lost to Trinidad and Tobago, which eliminates them from contention for the World Cup. And of course, I listened to a lot of Canadian radio, and they rubbed their hands with glee that the U.S. was as bad as Canada, which I can't remember the last time they were in the World Cup, but I think it was probably when Paul von Hindenburg was the premier of Germany.
They won the World Cup against the U.S. at one point. Not too.
I don't remember. All I know is it's been a long time. But that's not the point. The point is that over the last maybe 20 to 25 years, millions of dollars of resources have been pumped into the U.S. soccer effort. There's been the groundswell of soccer is the biggest growing sport among youth in the United States. All these things. And if you look at the results from what the U.S. National Development Program in hockey has gotten out of a pittance compared to that, where they've generated players like Austin Matthews and Jack Eichel and Clayton Keller and Charlie McAvoy, whereas is there a soccer equivalent, an American soccer equivalent of Austin Matthews? I don't know if there is. All I know is
there was Freddie Adu, but he didn't pan out.
Yeah, he was 16 years old, and I don't think he's when he was the big thing, and I don't know if he's even playing anymore.
I think he's X age now, so I think he's too old to play.
But the point is that with a country with as many people and as much resources, and them being given to USA Soccer and applied to USA Soccer, the results have been pathetic. And I wish they would increase the funding for USA Hockey, because you know what? At least they do something with it.
Okay. I'm not one. I can't believe I'm in this position, but I'm not one to defend soccer over hockey. But I'm going to. This is why. Okay, and I feel like I can talk on this pretty profoundly because the fact
you're more of an expert than we are, way more.
I mean, I hated the sport growing up. I just never saw the purpose of it. I still really won't watch a game. But I have been around it a lot because my daughter's going pretty high and played for the U.S. team and all that stuff as a young kid, as like a 14-year-old. So here's the thing. Here's the difference between hockey and soccer. Well, first of all, they both suffer from the same similarity in terms of the fact that they weren't major sports, and for a long time. When you look at how good the USA men's soccer team is, don't compare it to the women's soccer team first off, because women's soccer team, they are wonderful people, and I know them. I've dealt with them. They're great people. I talked to them when this whole thing was going on with it. But the women will be the first to admit that the reason that they are where they are is because women's soccer in the rest of the world has been terrible. And it's just started. I mean, women have always played soccer, but they didn't play at high levels.
Okay. So we scratch that. We go back to men.
The men's soccer. Here's the thing. Okay, in order to have good soccer players. There's nothing to do with the men's coach. There's nothing to do with that. In order to get them to that point, okay, you need good youth coaches. In order to have good youth coaches, you need generations of what we're seeing now, and not just the last 10 to 15, 20 years. Like what we're seeing now is incredible. You do have an unbelievable amount of kids playing soccer. But even go back to when we were kids, say, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, when we were playing soccer, and who was coaching you like back then? Like, so basically somebody who probably didn't know a soccer ball or didn't know offsides or didn't know, we are just coming into this group of kids who have been playing for, like, say, the last 25 years are just starting to have their own kids now. They're just starting to coach because these kids who played soccer intensely, for years and years and years are just starting to coach now.
Okay, but here's the thing, we in the U.S., if you want to win at ice dancing, you let a couple from Canada defect and you win at ice dancing. If you want to win in gymnastics.
Yeah. And that's what's happened. When we coach, my daughter plays at a very high level team, and almost all the coaches we play against are English. Yeah. Like we play against British coaches all the time.
So how come that hasn't worn up
That's a relatively new thing too. That's like within the last 5 to 10 years. Okay.
Well, wait. How do you think? Like, remember the big explosion in gymnastics in 1984 when Mary Lou Retton and everyone won at the Olympics in Los Angeles. One of the keys was getting Nadia Comaneci's coach Bella Caroli to come over, and he coached a lot of the Americans.
Now that's where I was getting at.
Now soccer, the American soccer has done that. They brought over Jurgen Klinsmann.
No, he's coaching adults. Okay, with that, where you make stars is not at that level. Okay, he's getting kids who are very good players for American kids, but when he's getting them, he can't. I mean, he's not getting to form superstars. You have to, first of all, in America, you first of all have to attract them away from baseball, away from football, away from basketball, away from hockey.
Right.
And then those who will go away from all that to play soccer, which is still not going to be your top athletes because you have, because it's rare. I mean, some of them might, but you have to really, and the only reason they would was because their dad played soccer, or
because their parents view it as being safer than the other sports.
Right.
It's definitely helped out with that for sure, and because it's cheap. Okay, soccer is cheap. Right. Soccer has that going for it, which is why it's big throughout the world. But in America, we can afford to play ice hockey and pay thousands of dollars.
I just feel like by the time we're good at this, you know what they're going to say? They're going to be like, "Hey, this is great, but we've just switched over to robots." So sorry.
Well, Russ, that's the thing. Right. We heard that argument in 1990. It's going to take us 25 years to be a soccer power. Well, sorry, look at the calendar. It's 25 years, and I think a decade
ago. Look, I'm not the biggest soccer guy, as you know, but I don't kill it. A decade ago, I believe I signed up for this thing to get the World Cup here. You can't get the World Cup here if you can't compete in the World Cup.
Oh no, we can get the World Cup here because we'll pay the money. But
and then it's like kind of like comes like behind things. Then it becomes like the Memorial Cup where you have to participate in it. So if you have it in your home place, but I think that, I mean, this really comes down to getting the right kids to play the sport, to getting their parents, in order to get the right kids to play, to have parents who like the sport, who love the sport, who happen to have the right athletic kids. I don't know how in 1990 they could have ever thought this was possible. The difference between hockey and this, is that hockey at least it's been a professional sport in America for a very long time.
Well, I mean, people complain about USA's record in Olympics and in international competition. Well, I'm sorry, in the World Cup, in the last 20 years, they've made the quarterfinals of the World Cup once. They made the round of 16, I think, twice. So the results are, that World Cup victory with Ron Wilson coaching in 1996. That's much better than anything that USA Soccer has done. All I'm saying is it's a tip of the hat to USA Hockey because they're far down in terms of the list, in terms of what they get in terms of resources compared to USA Soccer. And all I see USA Soccer doing is spending that money on lack of results.
Here's the thing. So the USA Hockey Soccer Federation started in 1913.
Yeah.
Like that we have no excuses.
Yeah, no, we do. I mean, honestly, Russ, what they're doing now, though, I mean, is incredible. Like the money that you see that going into it now, like there are a couple other things here. I could talk for 6 hours about this, but we'll stop this soon. But what they're doing now, like, so in Philadelphia, we have the Philadelphia Union. We have a professional soccer team here, right? In the MLS. I mean, they get killed by 6th division English teams when they come over, but that's like they are the Philadelphia Union, right? And then when you walk around have you ever seen a game at that stadium?
Not yet.
Okay, it's a beautiful stadium, Philadelphia Union, beautiful stadium, and they sell out. But one of the reasons they sell out is when you go in there, when you walk around the concourse, you'll see the jerseys of every travel team in the area hanging in the rafters. Because what they do is they reach out to every travel team and they'll have like Plymouth meeting night, or they'll have King of Prussia night, where you get all these different kids, or they'll have Cherry Hill night, where you get the Cherry Hill soccer team, and the kids can run out on the field with them, and they sell tickets to their friends, and there's a huge marketing that's going on now, and they do a heck of a job. I mean, they push this really hard, and they have to, because at the end of the day, now I have a good friend who was a coach of my daughter's for a while, and he actually was the coach for the Iranian team a while back that went to the World Cup in one of these like spectacular like upset type situations. And he came over here, and he's now working over here. They hired him to come here because he married somebody from in this area. He went to college over here, and I sat down and had a long interview with him one time, and I don't see eye to eye with the guy necessarily, but when I interviewed him, he told me that I asked him why this was. I asked him, why do you think this is? like a place like Iran, who had with almost no money and like and the population of one of our states can actually kill us. He says it's because he was the under 16 boys coach for the USA too.
Right.
He said it's quite simple. He's like, it's because our boys don't know fear. They've never played. He says it's more like in Europe. It's more like, he compared it to NBA players. You're coming out of poor areas. And he says, and over here in America, these kids, at the end of the day, in order to win at soccer, you got to put everything on the line. He said, and he can't find American boys who are talented enough that are willing to do that. That's what he'll say. He'll say that they're willing to put it on the line the same way he grew up with people putting it on the line, like to that level in Iran or in Colombia.
Okay, I mean, I get that part in Iran, but we've had the North American Soccer League. The first one was 1970. So it's not like we didn't have professional leagues. It's 47 years ago.
It was, but in the professional league, it was all Europeans. Like,
yeah, it was, but it doesn't matter. That's when it started, and that's when it should have started, and that's when I was told it was going to start and spread out, and we were going to get great.
That's when the seeds were planted with Pele, with Giorgio Canaglia, with Eusebio, with the MISL in the late 70s. Now they have the MLS. You have a breathing, thriving league with talent that's coming over from Europe, but also homegrown. And there has not been a superstar, a legitimate soccer superstar generated.
They can't afford to bring one. No.
I'm talking about homegrown.
But any American who's that good right now will go play in England. Trust me. It's like there's no. That's like fun. We are the Swedish league, okay, of soccer. You know what I mean? Like,
but heck, what I'm saying is that we haven't developed. I don't care if they play in the Premier League. I don't care if they play in the Bundesliga in Germany. We have not developed one superstar soccer player in a country of 300 million. That's a statement.
I'll disagree with that.
We have a couple, but they play in Europe. They do.
You know who was? I'll tell you who was, and I knew about him only via the superstars. Kyle Rote Jr. was probably a superstar.
Yeah, but that was 40 years ago, Russ. I mean, Clint Dempsey is a great player. Bradley is a great player, but they're not superstars. They're not.
No, but a lot of them played in Europe a lot. Like a lot of them played around. And that also, it does affect it. Eventually we'll get there. We will, because of the fact that all these kids are playing and those kids are growing to love soccer and they're going to have kids and it's going to grow. But it takes generations for this to turn around. It's, the USA hockey program was turned around by guys from like Minnesota, like Herb Brooks and stuff like that, who turned it around, right? Because in Minnesota, you do grow up playing ice hockey. It is like, just like you do in Canada, right? But it took a long time to get that into places like.
I'll tell you what, you need ingenuity. I had a breakthrough today. I invented something that's never been done before. Right. I created the Yoo-Hoo pancake.
What is that?
You remember the drink Yoo-Hoo, right?
Yeah. Oh, wow. You combined Yoo-Hoo with pancakes?
I combined that with pancakes this morning, and I put up a picture on my Instagram.
Suddenly, I flashed forward to like the Close Encounters of the Third Kind scene with a guy like building, mashed potatoes in his kitchen.
Yes.
That's what I pictured you being this morning, Russ.
That's what I did. I saw Yoo-Hoo. I saw the pancake mix, and I said, "I'm doing it," and it was good.
That's awesome. I'll tell you, I do have one thing that I've brought up to. Like, I have friends who are MLS people, and they and I sit there and I fight with them because one thing that I think U.S. soccer is better than European soccer for one reason, and that is because we don't have all the frigging diving. The diving that goes on in Europe is unbelievable. In the MLS, it doesn't fly in America. And recently, my daughter played over in Austria against teams from Austria. And
Nazem Kadri.
Right. No, we played in Austria against teams in Austria. We got to the finals. The final game, we're playing a team from Germany, and that team was incredibly talented, way more talented than us. But they were also incredibly lame. You would just touch them, and they would fall over, and they would hold their arms and hold their legs, and they would touch you, and and if they got called, they would complain and complain and complain. Our girls weren't diving, they weren't falling over. It's like there's nothing worse than I'm fine with dirty players, but dirty players who can't take you being dirty back to them, that's where Americans draw the line. That's like, and I've had this fight all the time with my soccer friends who follow the MLS and all that stuff. They say, no, that's the way you have to play. You have to play that way. I'm like, no, that's awful.
Well, just to end this part of the conversation so we can talk about hockey, I don't know what's worse of an idea, the Yoo-Hoo pancake or what Tim Hortons in the Buffalo area apparently is going to be distributing, the buffalo sauce flavored latte.
Oh, jeez.
I go with the Yoo-hoo pancake. I do.
I think the drink-a-toast pancake would be something to behold.
Oh, okay, let's start.
One last thing I want to throw out there, and this is it. We will stop this conversation. I do know how to fix soccer, and I brought this up with my soccer friends. And this is something that has to happen in the MLS, and it will probably spread to other places because they're purists over there, and they won't do this right away. We need to take something from hockey, and what that is overtime, and overtime in soccer should be 7-on-7. If you had instead of when you have overtimes in soccer and no one scores, then you have these penalty kicks, penalty kicks are way lamer than shootouts because the goal it's just a guessing game. Shootouts, at least you have some talent going. If you had these top level soccer players playing 7v7 in like a golden goal, whoever scores first wins type 10-minute thing, you would have all kinds of excitement. That's something that has to jump on. That and explaining the offsides rule to Americans, which no one seems to say. Anyways, there you have it. Okay, that's enough.
That idea is probably as good as AHA doing an acoustic version of Take On Me, but whatever.
I listened to that, Russ. I thought it was pretty decent.
Oh, it's awful. Come on.
Stop it. And don't get me wrong, the song is not great. I like the video better.
It's like a sleeping pill, that song. It's so slow.
Anyway. Okay, let's get started.
Hello, Hockey World. It's Friday, October 13th. It's Friday the 13th, 2017.
I'm Michael Agello.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
Get that away. All right. Yep. That's okay. All right. So yes, I'm Macklin, and you're watching HockeyBuzzcast at HockeyBuzz.com. This is the podcast that comes to running through Friday, and for those of you keeping track at home, yes, we started at 1:33 today. And I'm sorry about that. We started late because I got some kind of computer virus, and then we also got into a heated discussion about soccer, which I'm sure about 5 of you will care about. But I think I do care about it because I'm forced to watch the sport too often. Anyway, here we go. So last night, all right, there are now. I want to throw this out. This is the incredible thing. There are now 2 undefeated teams in the NHL. One in the East, one in the West.
Yep.
The East, we have those hot to trot Jersey Devils with the really cool new uniforms, which I do like a lot. I like the fact they took the stripe off the bottom.
Yeah.
And then in the West, you've got your Vegas Golden Knights. These are the 2 best teams in hockey. Make your Stanley Cup predictions now. New Jersey or Vegas, who wins? How's it play out in the Cup final? What do you think?
Neither will make the playoffs.
I can't say New Jersey's not going to make the playoffs now.
Not going to make the playoffs now either.
I can't say that now because if things. Here's the thing about New Jersey. The reason, even though I picked them to be NHL 500 and on the a team that didn't make it, here's the thing. They have Schneider.
Yes.
They plugged in Butcher, who's now a top 4 defenseman for them. Santini is a year older. I saw him score an ice goal the other day. They have Pavel Zacha playing to what we all thought Pavel Zacha could, if you still believed in him, which I did. And then you have Jesper Bratt. Like you've plugged in 2 top 4 defensemen, 2 top 6 forwards. That's a pretty big deal for them.
Yeah. Well, I'm okay. I'm not ready.
And Zacha was there last year, but he's obviously better this year. That's
right. I'm not ready to say Jesper Bratt is. I mean, it's a great week and a half. Let's see how it plays out.
6 points. Like he's still.
I know. He's had a great start, but I'm just saying I'm not convinced that this is anything more than just a quick start. Who was the shortstop for Colorado a couple years ago? Had like 10 home runs in the first. Trevor Story.
I get it. Trevor Story.
Yeah. So I mean, it's a great start, and I saw him at firsthand against Toronto on Wednesday, and he's got amazing speed. I was impressed with Hischier. I mean, the thing that I think that leans toward New Jersey actually being competitive is that this is not the team of a few years ago that they were completely slow afoot. They are very quick.
And they have a great penalty kill. I mean, their penalty kill is terrific.
Well, the 3-on-5 goal that they scored against Toronto was just a cluster.
No, but they have 2 or 3 shorthanded goals already on the season.
Yeah, but the team speed, I think, gives them, it makes up a lot for some of their lack of offense in certain areas. And sure. Schneider he clearly had a hiccup last year. He so far has played very well. So I think that they have a chance to be competitive. Vegas, on the other hand, it's a great story. I watched the opening game. Everything that they're doing right now. I mean, Fleury standing on his head. James Neal is basically on pace to win the scoring title. That's not going to last. I mean, but I think the emotion is there, and that's going to carry them a little. That's going to carry them a little bit, and it's going to make them a little more respectable. But honestly, when it comes closer to the deadline, this team is dumping half their roster.
Oh yeah, there's no doubt.
Well, they're doing a good job at getting value for those players if that's the case.
Sure.
Yes.
I mean, after tonight, New Jersey has Washington, and the Knights have Detroit. So it's very easily possible that the Knights could be the only undefeated team left in hockey.
Whatever that's worth early in the season, right?
Right.
Because it's if not anything else, it's like winning is such a big thing. It's you've been around.
It's better than losing if you're going to go there.
I know it's so obvious, right? And I know you say that sarcastically, and I appreciate that. But it is so. But it's more than that. It's like we said it before. It's like the whole around an entire NHL team when they're winning versus losing is such a difference. And when you have a team like this going on like this, this is huge. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that you can build off of. Really.
Well, let's just say this. I mean, because there have been franchises, whether in their expansion year or in their first few years, where they'll start out the year like 1-19 or something like that. Just like starting off really badly, and the team loses their first 8 or 9 in a row, and you're wondering whether they'll ever win. I mean, they've gotten that out of the way, so there is a positivity there of them having early success. But I think that we have to look at things realistically, and it's a nice story, but I still think there's not a ton of talent there, and I still think a little bit of an embarrassment for that organization is the fact that they're 3 of their best players. They can't play because they have too many one-way contracts that they would have to waive to play Alex Tuch, Shipachev, and Shea Theodore. I mean, I think that their winning ways is obscuring that sort of embarrassing situation.
Well, it might be, but at the same time, it's also like I don't know. Winning never hurts you. It's like I know what you're saying. I get what you're saying, and they should be resolving those situations, and they will. But it's like right now, while you're going on this, like let those guys mellow in the minors for a little bit, and think. I mean, they obviously Shipachev, they have to figure that out. That's a situation they've got to figure out. The other guys, they can wait on. They can hold off on those guys a little bit longer. It doesn't hurt them to be there, and to come into a team that's like 4-0 or 5-1 or whatever they're going to come into is going to be great. I mean, that's going to be the way to go. I want to throw one thing out about New Jersey real quick too, because I never give the Devils enough props, and this Devils team is really, they are, first of all, they are fun to watch, which is really surprising. Because they're fast, like you said, and they're not defensive minded, which is fun to watch. But Miles Wood too, like he had a heck of a game against Toronto, I know, but he is that kid can fly. I mean, just like flat out fly.
They all can fly. I mean, Miles Wood's the son of former NHLer Randy Wood, played at the Islanders, Leafs, Sabres. I mean, I've seen him play in the minors. I've seen him play in the NHL. I think he's a good depth player. I don't think he's a top 6'4", but but they've got guys like that. They've got guys like Blake Coleman. They've got these young, really fast, really aggressive forwards, and that's going to benefit them, because especially in a league where a lot of teams are still struggling with the fact that this league is a speed league.
Yeah.
I mean, what they needed to do was the Devils shed of guys like Camilleri and guys who are nearing the end, who aren't that fleet of foot anymore. And even just replacing them with a younger, faster guy automatically helps you, even if they're not a finisher. I mean, it's a big deal. It opens things up on the ice. That's
all the Americans too. The Devils are full of Americans. I mean, they're crazy. I mean,
there's a lot of Americans in New Jersey too. I'm pretty sure.
4 out of 6 are their defense are Americans. 6 out of 12 of their top forwards are American. I mean, that's like that. They're really and their goalies are both American, I think, right?
Yeah, Kincaid, I think, is an American.
And their general manager is involved in USA Hockey and Ray Shero. So there you go.
It's like we talk about. America's come a long way. It has. I mean, we talked about soccer earlier. It's the same kind of thing. This is. So I kind of want to say one thing about it, Matthews too, real quick, because we wouldn't have a show yesterday because of all kinds of stuff, and I appreciate that. Sorry for that again. But here, watching him in that game, there's something that just struck me, that just hit me like a ton of bricks. First of all, one of the things that the Leafs do really well is pass the puck away from Matthews, expecting him to get to it. It's like they will throw pucks, like when he's coming through the neutral zone. Matthews comes through, which has such a long stick and such a good reach and is so quick that you can throw a pass. It feels like 10 feet in front of him. And you're watching them throw a pass across there. I'm like, who's he passing to? And then Matthews sticks out of nowhere.
They do that with most of their forwards because most of them are faster than their opposition. They throw the puck to zones and let the players go into the zone
Matthews will pick up the puck on the fly. Like he's not just chasing it down. He will actually grab. He's so fast with his stick that he'll move his stick out and take the pass when you felt like the pass was so far in front of him. I mean, like what you expect with a normal player. That's the one.
No, but you know what? It's sort of a trend. I talk about it this week on Hockey Prospect Radio too. There's players now, like a quarterback in football leading a wide receiver, that are doing this with players and literally throwing a pass to a spot because they know that their player is going to win that foot race and get there.
That's what we've gotten now. I mean, it's like
that's the influence of the Penguins. I mean, the Penguins started doing that 2 years ago, and that's
I don't think anyone does it as well as Matthews does it. Just I mean, and where McDavid has his stick handlings at speed thing. I don't think anyone takes a pass at speed better than Matthews. Like that.
I agree. I would concur with that.
He's unbelievable at that, and I mean,
Eichler's pretty close on that too, though.
But because he's so good at that, the Leaf players they don't have to play with such precision. They know this, and they say, okay, Matthews is there. I'm just going to throw it towards him. Like they throw it towards him, he'll get it, and it really allows him to go quicker.
Well, I mean, look, back in the day, if you just shot it on net, and Phil Esposito was around the net, you had a great chance of getting a goal, right? It didn't matter how you did it.
That changes the game. And the other thing Matthews does incredibly well is that I remember one time Gretzky being interviewed, and they said, what did you do when you were a kid? And he said, I used to watch Hockey Night in Canada, and I would put my finger on the ice, and I would follow the puck wherever it was. And I drew a picture. He would draw the rink onto a piece of paper, and then his father would have him, get there and follow the puck with his finger wherever it went. He would put his finger wherever that puck was on the ice. And he said, through doing that, game after game after game, Gretzky learned how to be where the puck was going to go to. And that was what that was.
See, if I did that, my dad would be like, can you move your hand? I can't see the screen.
Right. So I don't think anyone is better at knowing where the puck is going to go in the NHL than Austin Matthews. And I think if I'm a coach right now, if I'm a youth hockey coach, I'm telling players to do that exactly what you're doing with what Gretzky's doing. Do that with Matthews, not with the puck, but with Matthews, because he just has the ability to. He knows where things are going, and he's so confident about it.
He is.
Well, I'm not, and not to go on about the Leafs, but the game on Wednesday again illustrated my point regarding their defense. Their defense was brutal. They had a bottom pairing that was on the ice for 3 of their goals. They gave up a 3-on-5 power play. Mike Babcock seemed beside himself in the post-game press conference.
He was laughing at himself on the bench.
They cannot keep playing defensively as ineptly as they are at some points. Their offense is wonderful. The offense is a powerhouse, but they cannot continue to cover up for their bad defense, and they're going to have to start playing a little more two-way. Otherwise, they're no better than Edmonton was a couple years ago.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with that, but they're better than Edmonton was a couple years ago.
I mean, we think they are, but Mike has a point. Against the Devils, I did text Mike and said they're playing right into the Devils' hands here. They're playing the Devils' game, and that's the last thing you want to do against that team. They needed to switch it up against the Devils, and they didn't do that.
Now, then what do you do if you're them? If you're the Leafs, I mean, because honestly, you can't. I mean, you really have to just wait. I mean, honestly, you're sitting back and you built this team, and you're not going to make a big trade right now.
If I'm the Leafs, I would have slowed down that game a lot more at times.
I mean, in the big picture, I agree with you.
Honestly, right now the die is cast but I think before the deadline, you have to make that big trade. This team is playing a bottom pairing defenseman in Ron Hainsey on the top pairing with Morgan Riley. They're playing 2 Swedish rookies who have never played in the NHL. Now they're going to rotate some of their young defensemen in and out of the lineup. They're probably going to re-sign Roman Polak, but their defense is short probably 2 NHL defensemen in terms of being able to be a Stanley Cup contender. And maybe you can develop one of those guys, but it's very rare that you're going to develop 2 top 4 defensemen within your organization. So they have to go out and make the tough decisions and get themselves a defenseman. Otherwise, I think they're spinning their wheels.
I think they have to move Kapanen. That's my theory. My theory is they have to move Kapanen and do it because if they can't get Kapanen into the lineup right now, You're never going.
I think ultimately he is going to get moved. I agree.
Well,
you're never going to get him in line, but you can't get him in now. You know,
I don't think that they're going to move Kapanen for one simple reason, because they're not going to re-sign James Van Riemsdyk, Tyler Bozak, and Leo Komarov.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter. Bracco is going to be ready soon too. So
yeah, I know. I think you need. In the Bracco come in, but I think JVR is an important player to them right now. I mean, in a big way.
This year, I don't think going forward he is.
Well, this is we're getting into leaps here, but
I'm just saying. No, I think that it's hard. I mean, I know I appreciate the fact that you put your perspective on the Leafs and bring it. But at the same time, you have to say to yourself that this team was so terrible 2 years ago, and now they're one of the best teams in hockey. And you can't get there from here without having some holes. I mean, they're going to have holes. But the fact is, their offense might just be good enough that their holes don't matter. It's possible that they could still win the division with these holes.
Oh, yeah, I mean, it is entirely possible. I just, at the end of the day, I think with JVR, if you do want to play a better overall game, which I'm sure Babcock does, that's not going to include JVR.
No, and the report came out earlier this week that he wants to stay in Toronto. He's willing to take,
of course he does,
a team-friendly deal. Yeah, the problem is that his interpretation of a team-friendly deal is an 8-year deal around what TJ Oshie was making, which is 5.75, and with the numbers of the cap supposedly going up, and you're talking about paying Matthews almost or maybe as much as McDavid and Nylander close to what Pasternak is making, you can't afford JVR making $6 million or close to $6 million. So it's either you keep him through this year as an own rental through the deadline and you let him walk, or you trade him at the deadline and maybe you can get your defenseman for him. But one way or the other, I don't see James Van Riemsdyk staying in Toronto. So he may be important, but that's why they have depth in the organization. They have guys who can replace him.
Yep.
Yeah. All right, moving on to other stuff. I watched a little bit of the Pittsburgh Tampa last night.
That's the only game I watched. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was a good game. It was back and forth. I watched that, and I watched the Predators game as well. So I was flipping back and forth between the Preds.
I'll tell you the one thing I took out of the Pittsburgh game is they still have that comeback ability. Yeah. They still have guys like Rust who are just lying in the weeds and score goals when you don't expect it. And Tampa-wise, they look really good. Their defense is still not great. Their offense is tremendous.
Yeah,
Vasilevsky is amazing. Like, yeah. And that's the thing. Like, he's better than I thought he was. He's grown. Like, he's progressed. You're seeing him like he is a different level than he was even last year.
Oh yeah, but I don't know. I'm not sure what you thought he was going to be, but I always thought he was going to be a top player.
And he was good, but he seems like he got larger, if that's possible.
Well, a few years ago when he was in the Stanley Cup final, I mean, you could see the natural ability, but you also could see, the youthful exuberance, and sometimes it would take him out of position. I haven't seen that as much this year, but Tampa Bay's offense, I mean, Kucherov is unbelievable. Stamkos doesn't look like he's missed a beat. They got a couple goals out of Slater Cuckoo, which is out of the ordinary because he's not that.
Really. He is an offensive defenseman, Mike.
Yeah, but okay. I mean, I'm not taking.
We don't know. That's the whole thing. I'm saying in the future, I think you're going to see more goals out of him.
But when that team makes their moves at the deadline, there's no doubt in my mind that's going to be to bolster their defense. Because,
it has to be, yeah.
Yeah, because Stralman and Hedman cannot play 30 minutes a night.
No.
And then that's what they're almost forced to do right now, because after that, you're talking a mixture of Girardi and Coburn and Dotchin and Schuster, who's, to me, if it was anybody other than John Cooper, Schuster would be in Syracuse right now.
Right.
I really feel as though Tampa and or Toronto is going to deal with the Flyers at some point. Like, there seems like there's no, they really, when you think
the Flyers have a history of dealing with Tampa. Toronto, I doubt it.
Well, they dealt with Toronto before, obviously.
Not a lot, though.
Luke Chen for Van Riemsdyk deal was
yeah.
But the fact of the matter is, the Flyers are sitting there with all these defensemen, and they're sitting there. They've got Sam Morin in the AHL. Sam Morin's an NHL defenseman right now.
You know what? That's an argument, Eck. I mean,
but I think he is.
Look. He's an NHL defenseman who can only play one side, and that's why he's in the AHL. That's the issue with Morin. He cannot play either side.
In Toronto, is he a top 4 defenseman on them right now?
For who? Morin? No.
In the top 4?
No.
No
because
way.
He doesn't have top 4 speed. He doesn't have top 4.
He's not as slow as you're making.
He's not. He's a fast straight line skater. He's not a great turner. He has his limitations. He is always going to be a bottom pairing guy who's strong, might score an occasional goal, and will definitely be physical, but that doesn't make him top 4 on any other team.
Being realistic here, I mean, obviously Philadelphia is never going to trade Provorov. I don't think they're going to trade Gostisbehere. And the one defenseman of the young group that Philadelphia has that I think could be a top 4 on the Leafs would be Sanheim. So that would be probably the guy that they would target. But what would Sanheim cost from the Toronto perspective? Kapanen?
Kapanen.
Yeah.
I think Toronto would do that. I do.
I think Philly might do it. I really do. I mean, they like Sanheim, but I get the weird sense that they don't trust him completely. I
don't think it's that. They really want him to play a lot of minutes in a top 4 situation. That's really what they want.
I mean, he just hasn't, to me. I mean, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, but to me, he hasn't progressed as much as they thought.
No. He's progressed this year. No, absolutely. No, I disagree.
Just watching him. I mean, I'm watching him this year. I think he's solid, but I think that they might look in. They might make that deal. I mean, remember Kapanen, was a Flyer, of course. He grew up here, and that always does mean something to Philly.
I'll give you a wild card. I mean, and Ufi Bowden is the one who brought it to at least my attention yesterday, because I'm not sure a lot of Flyers fans were paying attention. They were probably watching the Eagles. But Jesper Pettersson, who is a Flyers defenseman who's been playing overseas for years, I think he's 22 going on 23. He's having a breakout year this year. And so, that's another guy that nobody, including me, has talked about in a long time, and another defenseman.
Well, and we can't draw too many conclusions after less than 2 weeks into the season, but and right now, just looking at when it comes to the deadline, and there are defensemen out there who might be shopped from teams that are going to be out of the playoff race, which would be, I'd say, Vancouver is a guarantee. You're going to see the name of Chris Tanev pop up. I think when that happens, Toronto is going to be first in line to try to get those defensemen, because the only thing that's realistically stopping this team from being a legitimate Stanley Cup contender is the fact that they need 2 defensemen.
Yeah, no, I think that's true. I think, but I think at the same time they have so much offense. It depends, and it's such a good goalie. It depends. Now, to me, the difference between Toronto, when I was trying to pick Toronto or Tampa at the top of that division, I was I'm looking at Anderson, I'm looking at Vasilevsky. I like Vasilevsky a lot, but if he actually does take steps forward like he appears to be taking, that's a game changer completely. And I know people always like Vasilevsky, but he actually looks like he could be one of the top 3 or 4 goalers in the NHL. If that's the case, then that changes things.
I mean, I think Anderson is a very good goaltender. I think he's a top 12 goaltender in the league, but I think that the Leafs defense will mitigate that value, at least for the early part of the season. Once the season gets rolling, Anderson gets rolling, he's traditionally a slow starter. But Vasilevsky, I just think his physical ability is so much so, and Tampa's offense is going to be so so on top of things. And honestly, they have Hedman and they have Stralman, and that puts them ahead of Toronto in terms of defense.
I'll tell you the other thing that could make Sanheim or Myers tradable is the fact that if Myers, plays 30, 40 games with the Phantoms and puts up big numbers, then they do have the ability to trade one of them. He's got a point in 2 games right now. Yeah. So that is a possibility too. So that's why they probably wouldn't do it yet. But I think, 20 games down the road, they might look at that.
Yeah, I think the Flyers need Moran in the lineup more than they need some of the defense. I mean, they need some size. They need some strength in there.
But he's too much like Radko Gudas, and that's why they don't have him in the lineup now.
Yeah,
I really like Radko Gudas.
Switching to another team that I am well aware of. The Sabres lose in San Jose last night 3-2. Yeah. I believe the record now is 0-3-1. Jack Eichel has 1 goal. And of course, after him signing the big contract, I'm not saying that there's hue and cry about him starting slow, but you knew once that deal was signed, everything would become a focal point with him. I still think I don't know if he's worth $10 million. I think that was a little bit of an overpayment by the Pagulas, but I still think he's one of the better young players in the league. My problem with the Sabres right now is they're not getting great goaltending out of Robin Lehner. He's inconsistency is there. They really don't have an answer in the organization other than him at the number 1 goaltender. I don't think Ullmark is ready to be a number 1, and Chad Johnson's a perennial backup. And their defense, Russ, I mean,
It's still a hot mess, yeah.
It's still a hot mess. Zach Bogosian could be the worst bang for the buck defenseman in the NHL, making over 5
years. I think he is.
And, you know, and right now, I mean, I know that fans in Buffalo are just saying, when is this team going to turn it around? Because they've been told for years, for at least 2 years, there's a ton of talent here, and it doesn't show consistently.
It's just they don't have a full team. I mean, we talked about their defensive deficiencies. We talked about their possible goaltending deficiencies, and right now they're showing. And there's no fix for the goaltending part. There's no fix until maybe the trading deadline when a team's willing to trade somebody. Nobody's going to trade a goalie right now.
No, I agree. I mean, I'll tell you my 2 cents on them is, and I'm watching them now, and I've watched them last season, and I'm starting to honestly feel like Bylsma's not the right coach for this team. And people always go, Bylsma's the greatest thing since sliced bread and everything like that and all that stuff. But Bylsma's history with young players, like remember when he took the Penguins, you know, obviously, you know, after, you know,
I mean, Bylsma wasn't the right coach. There's no doubt. Now that they,
and I know Housley's the coach now, but what I meant by that, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm kind of doing a live show right now. Video-wise, I can call you back in like 45.
Right. Bylsma, okay, I believe messed them up is what I'm saying. Like that and I think Housley is still like trying to.
Yeah, 4's good.
Trying to connect on that.
Okay, bye.
Housley is trying to get to the point where he can undo it, and they're almost like starting from scratch. You know, in so many ways, like it feels like they're starting from scratch because of Bylsma being there, because of what he did, and because, you know, he just really took them far. And
I don't know, Ak. I mean, with some coaches, I think that there's always that adjustment period that, you know, that he screws up a team so badly that it takes time for them to sort of straighten out.
Yeah.
I don't get the impression. I mean, for what, you know, Housley, I think is his point of view is a more modern point of view. He emphasizes speed. I think he's trying to open up this team offensively, which is
the right guy eventually, but it takes a lot. It's going to take a lot of time, and that's the thing. It's just taking a lot of time to do this. Like
Housley's new there, and
it kind of reminds me of like Patrick Waugh, you know, like what he did to Colorado in a way. And I'm not saying comparing the Waugh to Bylsma, but I'm just saying that, you know, I think that it's the wrong coaches, and then. But they stress, like Bylsma has a definite style that he stresses, and that style, it takes a while to undo it.
Yeah, Botterill was not going to be able to undo all the bad contracts in one short off season.
Right.
Like, he wasn't going to be able to do it.
Well, the one thing that he did that was smart regarding Leonard was he only signed him to a 1-year deal. He gave him money, but he only gave him 1 year. And if he is sold on the fact that he's not the guy going forward, remember this was a Tim Murray move. They traded a 1st-round pick, which turned out to be Colin White, to get Leonard from Ottawa. If he doesn't pan out, if he doesn't take the job and run with it, then they're probably on the market for a number 1 goaltender, and maybe Botterill goes back to his old stomping ground and says, what do you want for Tristan Jarry? Because maybe he'd be the future number 1 that they would potentially go after. But
prospects, right? I mean, don't they have a couple good Swedish prospect goalies down there?
Yeah, but nobody close. I mean, Allmark is the guy. I mean, go ahead.
25 years old.
I was going to say, here's their bad contracts. You have Pominville for 2 more years at 5'6". You've got Molson for 2.
He's been their best forward, though, Russ.
I know. But how long is that going to last? You've got 2 more years of Matt Molson at 5.
He's a buyout at the end of the year.
You've got what's his name? Bogosian is making 5.1 until 2020.
Yeah, that's a boat anchor. And Josh Georges is up at the end of this year.
Georges is up at the end of this year. So at the end of this year, they'll lose Kane. They'll maybe buy out one of those, but they still have to fill those spots. Maybe Gooley comes up. Like, they're still, even next year, unless they were to get like a Ben Bishop type goalie, they're not going to be a playoff competitor.
Well, this is where Botterill is going to have to make his decision, and right now it'll probably be an easy one, because if they're playing this badly, they're not going to be in playoff contention, and if they're not in playoff contention, then it's open up to the highest bidder who wants Evander Kane.
I'll tell you who Botterill will go after hard. It's pretty obvious.
Well,
he'll go after Marc-Andre Fleury. Like he'll go because that's the guy that they need to bring. I mean,
and it's going to cost him a lot. It'll cost him Gooley. It'll cost him a couple of firsts, and it'll probably cost him another prospect.
I don't know about a couple first.
It could be a couple of firsts.
Fleury's contract. I thought he only had one.
2 years, I believe.
Okay, so
Right, if it's 2 years, one first, a goalie, and probably another player.
yeah,
Sam Reinhart.
Maybe.
yeah. I mean, yeah, it's a tough spot obviously to be in, but I think that
Yeah, Fleury's got this year and next year $5.75 million. No, I mean that's not unrealistic, but I'm just and it would make sense because Botterill had been with Pittsburgh for so long, and we know the quality of Fleury. I mean, if you needed any,
if you put Fleury on that team next year, you're looking at something. You're like,
Yeah, then you're looking at something.
you got
But
something.
again, to get him there, it's going to take a lot.
Yeah, I mean, and it might be that Fleury just likes playing in Vegas too. Like,
Yeah, he made it. And if he decides he doesn't want to go anywhere, then they're going to have to be able to make a trade for a goalie, because I don't know who's free agent goalie next year. Like Ryan Miller. I mean, you're going to bring him back? What are you going to do?
yeah, no, there are not many free agent goaltenders.
the goalies, free agent goalies, right? That's what we talked about before. But all right,
They're in a spot. The Sabres are in a spot right now.
getting questions, Russ, about Andrei Svechnikov, who is
What kind of questions are you getting about him?
playing at the OHL, right? He's
Mhm.
like, got 10 goals in 9 games.
Yep.
And yet, is this the guy the number 1 overall?
I mean, I can't say that yet. I mean, Rasmus Dahlin, him, Brady Tkachuk, those are the 3 guys. Svechnikov has great size and speed. Like I said, he's not comparable to his brother. I think his brother is Evgeny, right? Who's
Yep.
with the Red Wings, and not comparable in the sense that he moves at top speed like an Austin Matthews. He really does. And when he closes in on a goalie, defenders really can't do anything. So at that level right now, he is a man among boys. When he gets to the next level, though, he's still going to be very, very effective. It's going to come down to who we think is going to line up to get that first pick, and are they going to want to go defense or offense? Because it is going to make a difference now. Now teams sort of do go that way.
Yeah. I mean, he's looking like just like everybody I talk to. Serious.
Oh, he's a generational talent. I mean, he looked great last year. Actually, he looked great 2 years ago.
And Dahlin is not one of these, he's not Eric Brandstrom where he's 5'9", and Dahlin is a physical specimen, not to the extent of a Victor Hedman, but a guy who's not going to get pushed around. He's got plus speed. He's an offensive player. He's a defensive player. I mean, he's the complete package in terms of a 20 to 25 minute a night defenseman in the NHL. And
but nobody's seeing him right now, and he's had some injuries for big tournaments. Mm-hmm. So what's going to happen here, Eck, is until the World Juniors, everybody's going to go and look at Andrei Svechnikov and say, he looks like the first overall pick. And then if Dahlin has an amazing World Juniors, that will neutralize that.
It's the Liljegren effect is what you're saying. Yeah.
This is also going on an hour ago. It was reported by TVA Sports that Alex Galchenyuk was not at practice for the Montreal Canadiens today. Now,
he's got the flu, supposedly.
Okay, that's an interesting. I mean, that's fine. He might have.
But his name, his name. I mean, he was relegated to the 4th line by Claude Julien. The Canadiens have only scored 4 goals in 4 games. Let's just say this: it's a train wreck right now in Montreal. Not to say that it's not going to straighten out, but everything. If you could dream up the worst case scenario for them in the first week and a half, it's what's happened. They beat Buffalo in a shootout. They tied the game on a lucky goal. Other than that, they got shut out by the Rangers. They got stoned by the Chicago Blackhawks. They're not playing well, and they're not scoring, which is what a lot of people, including me, said they would not have a chance of being a legitimate Stanley Cup contender until they added offense. And this year, they didn't add the center that they needed. They added Drouin, and they moved him up the middle, and they've weakened themselves in other areas. So this is the chickens coming home to roost so far.
So the 2 rumors I've been reporting on the last couple of days, I've been chasing like crazy. One of them being Galchenyuk and Juleson for Duchesne in a pick, and that would be a 2nd, 3rd, or 4th pick. We've talked about it many times before. Victor Mete, has he made Juleson, who is still hurt? He's got a broken foot.
I don't think Victor Mete has made Juleson a guy that they should think about trading, but they may have to, because if the regime there is getting pushed to the wall, then
and Duchesne, is playing really well right now.
Yeah.
and he's playing well, so he can get traded. He's really
no. He's always played well. Last year was a little bit of an off season. Come on.
Right now, I'm just saying that he does not. People who say he's playing well, he's going to stick around there. He's not.
Russ, all I can think of right now regarding the Montreal Canadiens and their management right now is their mindset is probably the same as the Blue Jays were a couple years ago when they made those trades. They traded the rest of the prospects in their organization to get to make the ALCS 2 years in a row, and now they're dealing with the fact that they have no prospects whatsoever. That's where Montreal is. They've traded Sergachev. Now, if they trade Juleson and Galchenyuk to get Duchesne, they're going for basically we need to contend for the cup the next couple years and be damned the prospects. Draft schmaft. It's basically, and that's that's disaster. That's disaster. I'm telling you,
it is. It's potential disaster. But again, saying that, and I like the way Mete's looked. Don't get me wrong, but saying that Mete is sort of making Juleson a guy that they could sort of shake loose is like saying, well, Sam Girard's playing so well in Nashville, now they could trade Ekholm.
Right.
Yeah, no, I get that. I get that. The other thing I'm chasing is Athanasiou. And he is and I've heard a lot about the Islanders in the last 2 hours. Since about noon today, I started hearing the Islanders with Athanasiou. They're trying, I know there was a couple articles came out today in other places that had him linked to Montreal. And I know Montreal is definitely interested in him as well. Montreal wants to add a forward. The Senators want to add a forward. And also, I've also, but I think the Islanders, it really feels like there's something to the Islanders in Athanasiou.
Well, based on what has been reported about what the Wings are looking for in exchange for Athanasiou, which is a comparably aged, comparably talented forward, the Islanders have that to spare. And you could talk Villiers, you could talk Dal Cole, you could talk Ho-Sang. There's a couple others there, Matthew Barzal. There's enough there that, I think that type of deal makes sense for both teams. It depends on which one that the Islanders give up. Because, I
can't trade Barzal for him. I would trade Bavolier for him.
Yeah, they won't trade Ho-Sang. They really like Ho-Sang.
And I'm not even talking about Ho-Sang either. I think it would have to be Bavolier. Yeah, that would look. Again, it would give him a guy with more experience rather than having all these inexperienced guys in the top 9, which is a problem for them. It is. I know I've harped on it, but it is a problem. This could be a really good move for them though if they're able to pull it off.
Yeah, it could help. It could help both teams, I think. Obviously, Detroit's not getting anything from him right now, so and it really feels as if that not only did that, his price is really high to sign, and I think that's true. But a part of that is the fact he doesn't want to play in Detroit. I've been told that he just when he played in Detroit never got any minutes there, so he's pushing his price really high.
I could see that. To switch it back to Colorado though, for all the people that wanted to say Neil Yakupov was dead and washed up and everything else. He's clearly not.
Yeah, no, he's not. He's looking, and it's great for him. I'm really happy for him.
It is, and he's getting every opportunity that we sort of talked about that really has not happened for him on a regular basis anywhere he's gone, except for Edmonton under Ralph Kruger.
Yeah, he got screwed by Dallas Eakins in Edmonton. He goes to possibly the worst situation he could possibly go to, Ken Hitchcock in St. Louis,
where for 10 minutes.
Who play for 10 minutes, play on the fourth line when the guy is offensively a top 6 forward type of talent. And now with a team that doesn't have any expectations, you put him on your scoring line and you let him play. And right now, so far, it looks like a pretty good, for all those people who've been banging on Joe Sakic, this is a move where there was low risk, high reward if he turned out, and so far he's turning out. So this is I think, and I'm very happy for Yakupov because I always thought he was a victim of circumstance, and now he's getting an opportunity and he's playing well.
Yeah, no, definitely. And finally, I watched a little bit of that game, the Dallas Predators game. Oh, also, I guess we should talk a little bit. We talked about it before, but is Niemi a problem?
He's a problem. He every other tough shot on goal, if it's not deflecting off someone or you could sort of make an excuse for him, he looks shaky. He very rarely makes a great save.
Against Tampa, I was watching, I saw him this the heck is going on? This is the guy just gets smoked by Chicago, so put him in against another incredible team in Tampa. It's just
It was scary watching him in there.
It was, and I mean, he's trying. He's making some big saves too, but it's like the whole thing is just. I mean, gosh, why are they?
Well, I believe it was a back-to-back. Didn't they play Washington and?
Yeah, I think it was back-to-back.
Yeah, so I mean, pick your poison. It's Alex Ovechkin or Steven Stamkos.
Murray's young. Murray can go both of those games.
I think you know what it is. I think they're trying to figure out if they have a problem here or not.
Yeah.
The one thing that Pittsburgh has got to be concerned about with Matt Murray is injury.
Yeah.
Especially now that they don't have Fleury as the disaster backup, so they have to split the back-to-backs.
Look, if they have to bury Niemi, they will. I mean, it's that.
Yeah, simple. he's under the $1.025 million salary limit, so they could call up Jerry, and they could. I think they want to keep Jerry down within.
They do, but again, they just might not be able to.
And you know what? There are other teams out there that have 3 goaltenders that they might be able to. I mean, they picked up Condon last year. I mean, Toronto's got Pickard and McElhinney as backups. Maybe one of them would be better than Antti Niemi as a backup to Murray. I mean, there's options out there. Now,
Dallas and Nashville, I thought it was a fun experiment sometime to do, which would be that all of us know on one night where we can all not watch the games, okay? Just a game where no one watches anything and no one pays attention to anything. Like I've had a couple of those nights with family stuff where you don't see anything. You have no idea. You wake up the next morning and then you catch up with everything. And what I would often do in that case is that I watch the quick you watch the
the condensed game,
you watch that. But sometimes I'll have time and I'll watch the beginning of the game just in real time, and I'll sit there and I'll if there's enough few games. And I've often thought to myself, can I determine in the first 5 minutes who's going to win that game? And it's funny how I feel like I can, and so often there's just something about even if no one scores or even if the other team scores, sometimes you just get a sense that okay, this team is just on this night, this team seems to be matching up and doing all the right things to stop the other team. So, and I think it'd be a fun experiment to do sometime. But so last night I'm watching the reason for this. I'm watching the Predators and the Dallas Stars, and the Predators were horrendous in the first 5 minutes of that game. Like if I'm watching that game last night, I am saying to myself, the Predators are going to lose this game. There's no question about it. They were horrendous the first 5 minutes of this into the first 5 minutes of the second period. They were horrendous. They were just. I mean, they look so crazy out of sync. I mean, if you ever talk about Stanley Cup hangovers, they were playing half speed. They were getting beaten to every puck. Rennie was keeping them in it, playing amazingly. But, Dallas was all over them. And then suddenly, out of nowhere, so I tweet out last night, man, the Predators, they look terrible. And the second I tweeted out, of course, the Predators score a goal, right? And
Sam Girard got his first NHL goal.
He gets a goal, and then the Predators are going to win the game 4-1. And I'm telling you, if you watch the first period of that game, you're like, there is no way in the world that the Predators are going to win this game because what's going on with Dallas? I mean, this is a crazy thing.
I think it's a transition. Hitchcock is a new coach, and he may have gone through a preseason, but he's trying to teach these guys a different way, and it takes a little doing. I think it's going to take a little while. Conversely, though, I can't tell you how many people fought me about Sam Girard in his draft year. And I always thought he was a crazy offensive talent, but good defensively. And I would hear people say, oh, he can't play defense. And I'm like, listen, you got to watch him more. This kid can play defense, but he also is buzzing around on the ice and faster than most of the guys on the ice. Now, he has created a great problem for Nashville because at some point when Ryan Ellis is ready to come back, are you going to be able to take Sam Girard out? I don't know.
Just like the transition from Bilesma to Housley may take the Sabres a little bit of time, the transition from Lindy Ruff to Hitchcock is going to take maybe a little more because that team under Lindy Ruff did not have a concept of defense.
Right.
You had Ben and Sagan basically playing wide open offense and not even caring about what was going on in the defensive zone. And we know that Hitchcock demands accountability from his forwards and his defense in both zones. So it's going to take him a while to get used to that. I think eventually they will, but it's going to take some time.
But think about Lindy Ruff. I told you I thought the game has passed him by. The Rangers pick him up as a defensive coach right now, as an associate coach, and the Rangers defense hasn't looked remotely good in any game at any time, even in the game that Lundqvist had the shutout. And so I kind of wonder, where's Lindy Ruff at as a coach? Everybody thinks, well, if Vigneault is trouble, Ruff will be the guy. And it's like, I don't know. I don't know about that.
Well, being assistant, but still that's I don't know either. Watching last night, Laviolette versus Hitchcock, my daughter was like, hey, weren't both of these Flyers coaches at one point? I'm like, yeah, I think so. Um,
One quick thing about one of the other games.
Yeah.
The Winnipeg beats Vancouver 4-2. Hullebuck gets his second victory of the season. So after a few games, after 3 games, it looks like Steve Mason has lost his job.
for now. Yeah, no, I'm with you.
This is what Mason does every time, though, and then something will happen. There'll be an injury. He'll have to play 4 or 5 games in a row.
You're right. That's exactly.
This is what Steve Mason does, Mike. We've seen this over and over again.
I know, but I'm going to say
He has to play a bunch of games in a row, and he might be, first couple games he won't be so great, but then he'll be incredible for 5 or 6 games.
Right.
And then he'll play great for 5 or 6 games, and then he'll
and then they'll bring the backup back in. He'll play again, and then Mason.
And it'll be a sieve. So
he won't be as good.
This is the Steve Mason story. It'd be a great movie because it's just like.
Oh no, it's very. I mean, and Winnipeg people are freaking out, and I kept telling them all like, just relax. Mason's not. Mason's a good goalie. You face the Toronto Maple Leafs on opening night. I mean, that's the best offense. I mean, it's like. It's the best all-around offense in hockey, so it's like completely crazy.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, it's just not, it's okay. Hallebuck would have gotten shelled as well. Like, that's all I could say. He would have, maybe not as badly, but hey, would have gotten shelled as well. The Leafs were out for blood in that game. Finally, the Quebec Ramparts drew an announced crowd last night of 7,928 people, while the Carolina Hurricanes drew 7,892 people.
I gotta tell you, I've been to a Ramparts home game. And those fans are rabid. It's an amazing environment. And just imagine if they did have a pro team, how many more they could draw.
Oh yeah.
This talk is going to grow. And I know I forwarded you guys both a link of from John Shannon from Sportsnet. Yeah. We've heard about the Seattle thing for a while, and there seems to be a direction going in that direction. But there is a billionaire who owns the Houston Rockets who was looking to possibly bring a team to Houston. Yeah. So the NHL may have more options.
We're a billionaire. If a billionaire wants to, they will go there. Trust me.
Right. And they have the building
back to Winnipeg.
What's that?
That's how you got a team back to Winnipeg. A billionaire.
Right. Yeah. Right. Exactly. So I mean. Go ahead, Russ.
It's an interesting thing because Houston never used to be a great sports city except for certain things, but they have a lot of transplants. They do. And I don't have a good handle on the transplants right now. I do know people that live there, and I'll have to ask them. But I see that the Astros are doing better than they used to do when they were sort of like in that in-between stage of being good, not being good. So I kind of think they can handle a team. I do. And that would be great for Dallas because, again, that would give them a natural rival. And although I have to admit, the rivalry in football, while on the surface, like fans getting mad, it seems good, but that rivalry hasn't really panned out yet in the NFL.
No, because it's always been AFC, NFC. That's why they're not in the same division. But I mean, this is a potential fallback if Arizona falls apart, and we know like if they moved Arizona to Houston, I mean then they would stay in the West. But if Carolina or Florida or if there's a transfer, but I think we know. I mean that the event, the NHL is going to get to 32 teams pretty quickly. I'd say in the next 2 to 3 years. So
yeah, I've been told many times. I said it before. I've told Quebec has a team whenever they want it. It's just up to them. It's up to the Canadian dollar getting slightly better, and Quebec can say, okay, we're good, and then they'll jump in. And that I mean that they promised them a team when they built that arena, and that's
they're getting a team. I mean, there's no doubt.
And they would have had a team. The plan was for them to come in with Vegas, but the Canadian dollar stopped that. So now, in a way, it's good for Vegas, and it'll probably be good for them. If they're the only team that comes in by themselves, it's definitely an advantage to coming in with 2 teams. So we're seeing that with Vegas too. That's the other thing that's really, I think, a big part of Vegas. Getting the best player from each team that they can get, not just half of the best players they can get. So anyway, all the time we have for today, guys. Enjoy the games this weekend. Thanks so much for watching us. Remember to support us at patreon.com/hockey, where you can pledge. We really appreciate it. Just even a couple bucks will help out a ton. And we will see you on Monday we'll have a lot more to talk about, and we'll have all the answers then too. Talk to you soon.